Start.
Okay, hello everyone. I can't see anybody now, so I assume you can see me and David and the things that are coming up. So anyway, lovely to speak to you all. And all this now was planned about a year. Well, it was actually a year ago when we had our meeting in Bellenvoyle, and they were asking for people to give lectures because we listened to an interesting one by Maria and her husband Julian, because obviously Maria's Spanish, and she gave us a really good one on Spain. And then I think it was John Invinson said, "Oh, Laurane, you have a house in France. You could give a talk on that in France sometime next year." And I cannot believe it was almost a year ago. I said, yeah, no problem. And of course, it was almost a year ago. And now here we are. And here's me getting a bit panicky about talking about it. But anyway, I'm sure you'll learn a little bit about it. Because, of course, now, because of this horrendous situation we're all in globally, I've not been able to go to France now for at least 15 months because I didn't go before the COVID crisis in March. So unfortunately, I've not been out there for 15 months. So I don't know what state the house will be in. It might have been taken over by the mice and owls and all sorts since I last went out there. So I can go on now and let you know. So as I say, hopefully the situation's the same with the house in France as it was 18 months ago when I went there. Well, it all started about in 1995, about 20 years ago. My ex-partner and I then at the time, we used to go to France a lot. We used to like camping and traveling around. And at this particular time, we'd been camping and cycling around in the Brittany. I don't know, again, I'll show you some maps soon. I'll show you the area where we were going. We'd gone to southern Brittany at the time, around Quimper and Concarneau, but we'd stayed a bit further north this time and stayed in the Saint-Malo region of Brittany, the Ile Côte d'Amour area it was called. Anyway, we were just cycling around, and which we had done. We enjoyed doing that. And I liked looking, as I still do now, like looking in estate agents' windows, or immobiliers, as they're called in France. I do it over here, and I used to do it all the time in France. And one day we were just in a place called Combourg, which is in Brittany, and looking at this estate agent's windows. And at the time, as you can imagine, 25 years ago, property in France is ridiculously cheap. I mean, I wouldn't say property because it was literally a barn, but even in comparison to over here, the properties were still cheap. Even the houses, as far as I'm concerned, were cheap. Anyway, so we were looking, and of course it was the French franc then at the time, 20 odd years ago. So we were looking, and I noticed that there was like lots of barns and places. And of course, I'm quite a dreamer and have a good imagination. And we saw quite a few things and areas. So we thought, oh, we'll go and have a look at these particular old buildings. And we drove around, and we even came to a place called, similar, I don't know if you know Swansea, there's an area in Swansea called Bonamine. Bonamine, I used to work there as a midwife a while ago, and they had a place similar to that called Bonamine in France, but it was totally different from the Bonamine we know in Swansea. Anyway, we catched on and saw this old barn advertised in a place called Sougel, which is Sougel, which is just on the border of Brittany and Normandy. And if David could put the map on the first photo, please, for me, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about now. If you don't know, if you do or don't know France, it doesn't really matter, because when you do look at the atlas now on France, at the top where you can see where it says Bay de Mont Saint-Michel, above there and go further about 20 odd miles north will be Britain, will be Portsmouth and Plymouth and the English coast. So it shows you where we are in France, where we're looking from Britain down to France. If you look on it, you can see, you probably may have all heard of Saint-Malo as well, and Mont Saint-Michel, which are quite well-known points in France. And if you look closer again, I have highlighted and marked a cross on the map. I don't know if you can see it. You can see Saint-Malo, and then there's a penciled cross. Can you see that? on the map. That's it. That's great. Thanks, David. So that shows just where it is. I'm just in Brittany. But as you can look again, it's right on where we are. It's right on the border of Brittany and Normandy. And you'll see a town there saying Pontarson. Now, Pontarson is the town in Brittany, Normandy. And my little house is just to the left of it in a village called Soujal, but unfortunately it's not on the map. And there's a river that goes just through that town, like this, where that red line is for the road, the 175, I think it says. And that is a river which is called the River Couesnon. Couesnon, Brits would call it, but they call it the Couesnon in France. And we're just literally on one side, the Brittany side of the Breton side of the river, and yet right on the other side, we're really close to Normandy. So we thought, oh, it's a great place to explore that part of Brittany and Normandy, because of course we've got all the World War sites over there on the other side. So it was so close to go visiting and to touring around. Anyway, so we went there and we saw this old barn and I loved it. It was just an old thing. But unfortunately, I've not got a really, really old picture of the house in France, but I've got some before we started to do it up. And before I go on to show you some of the property that I did buy, if David goes on to the second photograph, and there you can see, well, that's my grandson in the front. But in the background is Mont Saint-Michel, which is again a very well-known touristy area of France. A lot of people who know France will know this. It's a beautiful area. It's changed dramatically since we got the house 20 odd years ago, because you were able to drive right up more or less and park your car or stay overnight in a camper van. But now they've arranged it that you can't. You've got to park your car and then somewhere on the way into Deauville, which is the area on the way on into Mont Saint-Michel. And you have to then catch like a tram, which takes you into Mont Saint-Michel. Because of the barrier and the way the coast is and the tide, it comes right in. So they've had to change it completely. So, you know, there's a lot more history to that, and it's really worth going to see that. The changes, initially everybody was opposed to it, but it's made quite a dramatic difference to the area of Mont Saint-Michel. So that is about 15, 20 minutes from where I have the house in France. And it's lovely. So it's just to give you an idea, if you're looking and you don't know France, you'll say, oh, Mont Saint-Michel, you know that. It's a beautiful monastery on the top. And it's a beautiful town as you wind your way up to the top of Mont Saint-Michel. And you can get ferries to my area, to Saint-Malo, which was on the map. You can get a ferry to Caen, which is in Normandy, and also Cherbourg, which is right up the peninsula, if you can look on the map. The house in France from Saint-Malo, it's about 40 minutes. From Caen and from Cherbourg, it's about an hour and a half's drive to get there. So it's not far. So that's why it was attractive as well, because we knew once we got on the ferry, which is part of the holiday from Portsmouth to France, you didn't have all that far to drive. And yet, when you're actually in the area in Soujal, it's a 3-hour drive down to La Rochelle, and then obviously further on, it's about a 4 or 5 hour drive onto Bayeux and Bordeaux and the other areas of France. It's about a 3-hour drive to Paris. So it's quite a good little area, even though the weather, you know, because it's quite north in France, but it's always better than over here, you can guarantee. It's always 2 or 3 degrees, a bit warmer. In the summer, it gets up to 35, 40. But even this time of the year, it's okay. It's a lot drier than what it is over here. It gets cold, admittedly, as it does everywhere, but it's definitely a drier area than we have in Wales, which everywhere else is, I should imagine. But where it is, it's a lovely spot. And as I say, it's easy to get to. So that was one of the attractions to it. So when we arrived at the little house, let me just see now, yeah, Mont Saint-Michel, there's lots of lovely areas you can go to. I mentioned Mont Saint-Michel. Along the Breton coast is Cancale, Dinard, Dinan, Saint Malo, and it goes on. So there's lots of lovely areas. That area of France really is worth going and exploring. Anyway, if we can go on to the next photo, David. That's looking at the barn from the top end of the garden. We've done some renovation work to it there. But that little barn at the time when we bought it, we saw it, it was at the time 2,500 French francs, which worked out to be about £2,000. And that included the notaires fees as well. So I thought, oh my goodness, you know, that was nothing. I mean, I didn't have much money at all at the time. So what I did to buy the house, I had a caravan. So I ended up selling my caravan so I could buy this barn, because I had all sorts of dreams and imaginations for the house. We were going to use it initially as just somewhere just to get another caravan eventually and store it on the land. But over a period of time, I thought, no, I don't want it as a land. We could do something with it. Because again, I think if we go into the next photograph, David, please, yeah, you can see that we started with putting some glass doors on the front, but you will see how the grass comes right up to the house. And if you go to the next photograph, yeah, that's again, I'm sorry, there's not, I've got hundreds of photos, but can I find any? No. But this one now, where it's showing my friend here standing here, where there was an old shed attached to the barn. You can see the stonework needed really renovating, and the field came straight up to the house, because of course within the house, within the barn at the time, there's no water, no electricity, no waste system like the fosseptic or septic tank as we call it over here. There was nothing. It was literally one big room with a couple of beams upstairs where they kept the hay, where they used to feed the cows and the sheep, cows and the horses and pigs. And on in the house, they've continued to keep along the wall the like shoe rings and shoe hooks where they used to tie the animals up. So that really attracted to me. I loved it. Now, just briefly looking in the photo now, the lady looking at me is my friend and her husband who's died now, but they ended up buying the house further down because they loved it so much where we were. They ended up buying a proper house. And the lady you can see in blue, Madame Bigot, what a character she was. She lived in the house where you can see the top of the barn there. Now, she must be about 98, 99 now. And she's always been a very active lady. She's a fantastic lady. She cut the lawn for me with her scythe. And once I remember saying to her, we like chicken, poulet, you know, because my French is still useless, even though I'm going to night day school every week for French. So Madame Bigot, knowing that I liked poulet or chicken, when we're all sat in the garden one day, we heard this. Then the next minute, she brought over this chicken. She'd wrung its neck and just brought over the chicken. Me meaning we like chickens because she had about 10 of them in her garden. She ended up bringing one over and she ended up plucking it for us because I didn't have a clue what to do with it. Anyway, so you can see on the photograph there how sort of basic it was. And I think going down to the next one as well, David, do you mind? Yeah, well, no, that lead is on. If you go back up to the previous one, it shows you that all the grass there, because and we'll show you how we've improved it a lot more. So the grass was writing because that's where they kept all the animals, nothing else. It was literally to keep them in the field for the grass, and then store them inside for the winter to keep them dry. And that old shed next door was literally collapsing. And the farmer just used to come and probably the field used to take only about 2 or 3 cows or 2 or 3 horses. So we used to alternate them as well. We used to have a farmer, Elaine, who kept the cows there. And but the land became really undulated, as you can imagine. It wasn't flat like it is now. It was all sorts because obviously the cattle or the horses just trod all over the place. And then eventually we had one of the farmers next door as well. Monsieur Bigot, he used to bring his horses and he used to put them in there as well. So what we did initially, we just kept the property as somewhere to just keep the old caravan that we had and use it. Then I said, no, I think after a period of time, we might as well do something with the house. But we didn't have much money at the time, so it took us a while to sort out how much we would need. Eventually, I took it all on board myself anyway, so that's why it was quite a process, because we had to then go through the system of getting water put in, electricity and a fosse septique. This went on for months, because in France, the bureaucracy, you can't just sort of ring up, fill in a form and it's done. It goes on and on and on. It just, you know, proving who you are, and people, it's quite cute really, the way they used to come out with their clipboards quite regularly to check everything. But it was quite a process to get it that I could go ahead and get. And also, of course, in France, in the villages, everything has to have the permission of the mayor, the mairie. He or she has quite a lot of power in France in the village. I'll go into that afterwards about the life in France. So what we did then, we just eventually then managed to get the fosse septique in. I'm talking about the fosse septique for waste from the kitchen and from the shower room and from the toilet. Going back to Madame Bigot, who only up until 2 years ago lived in her house where she literally had just the sink in there and 2 beds and 2 bedrooms downstairs. She didn't have a washing machine. She just washed everything like with one of these skittle boards or scrubbing boards I used to have. And her toilet was possibly a good 100 yards away. Her and her husband had a string along here to go to the toilet at the end of the garden, which was literally a little wooden shed with like a waste bin with a hole in it and just went in the ground. So she had that up until her going into the nursing home. She didn't have any heating, nothing. It was just this gas little ring, color gas ring she had. And then this wood, all the wood she had, she chopped the wood. She was such a strong woman. She used to chop all the wood and keep the fire going then. And that's why she got to possibly 97, 98, nothing wrong with her, and ended up going into a nursing home because she did have a fall one day and she lived on her own, literally 9 months of the year. She was literally stuck there on her own. So I think a daughter who lived in Paris decided, you know, she needed to be looked after, so she went to her home. But we reckon she got to 98 in good health without central heating and all the mod cons that we have, carpets and rugs and things. So, but that was just her way of life, I suppose, at the time. Anyway, so that went on. We got the house sorted, and then we got to know some British people as well, because again, it was difficult for myself communicating to get French workers in, because of my French was useless. So we got to know some British people who work over there, and we gave them work to transform it. So eventually they did do the house. They came and did the walls. They put a floor in for me. They got rid of all the grass outside, so it was concreted outside. And the fosse septique, we had to get a company in, and that's quite a big thing in France, because lots of houses in France, well, they don't have gas. And as far as I know, I don't know any houses that mains gas. It's mainly color gas. And the fosse septique, but they do manage, you know. I mean, I know it's more rural than over here, but they do manage, and we do make such a fuss about having all this stuff over here. It just makes, it's only when I go back to France, which is like going back 50 years, I do appreciate it. Now, whether I would have to live with it all the time, I don't know, but you know, you do value and appreciate things a lot more. So if I can just move on to the David, the house, there you can see now, part of it now is where the land has been taken back slightly bit. This is all gravel now. It's all slabbed. I've got lots of slabs where the gravel is in front. You can see that caravan in the garden where we stayed whilst we were renovating the house as well. And then if you go down again to the next photograph, that is the road, and that is the back of the house now. That shows you where I've had it repointed and the windows put in for bedrooms upstairs. Madame Bigot, the lady, is the house further along, and my friend's house, that was further along as well. So that's the road that it was on. And then David, the next photograph. Again, that's the entrance now. You can see I've taken down the shed, and we had a gate put up as well. And that was the driveway into the house so that we can actually get into it. The next photograph. That's the house now looking as it is, you know, except now it's got more slabs down. There's a pear tree outside, which is lovely. This is just to give you an idea now. It's gone from like a barn with nothing in it, just literally keeping cows and horses on it. I mean, it could have been lots of improved, but finances stop you doing so much. And, you know, you only want to spend so much on houses anyway. And then if you carry on with the other photographs as well, that's part of it inside as well now. As I say, I'm sorry, I couldn't find some of the photos, what it was like inside. But you can see the walls have been plastered on the side. We kept the wall where I have a wood burning fire and put slabs down inside, and we kept the wooden beams. We kept as much as the natural features in the house as possible as well. The next one, David, please. Yeah, that's looking across from the lounge over to the dining area. And that's what a lot of places are like in France. It's called like the séjour, where they have it like the living and the dining room as well. It's all one room. So we try to keep a lot of the features as much as possible within the house. And it's now a lovely little two bedroom house of the mezzanine. And further in front of the doors, the glass doors, there's a kitchen area. Then where the white door is a bathroom and a shower in there as well. If we can go into the next one. And that's again another part of the house to give you an idea what it's like now from when it was the barn in France. It's taken quite a long time to get to this process, not only because of getting people in, but also going through the bureaucracy of it in France, because it's not as easy as over here. You know, I mean, it's easy because one, we know the system, and two, it's the language barrier. And as I say, because of the language barrier, that caused a big problem. But you do get there eventually. Everyone, the French were very friendly and willing to help and everything. So can we, is there more, yeah, again, sorry, that's just to give you an idea again of the inside of the house. If we go down, it's just an idea. So I wish I had more properties before photos. If we go down again, David. And that's outside the house, as we can see. It's all gravelly, but it's all tiled now. Lots of slabs put outside so people can see. But initially on those doors, they were just sort of big wooden doors, which I really love old doors, really. I don't know why I got rid of them at the time. But at the time, I thought, oh, no, we'll put nice new French windows in. And it's lovely. When I go, there's some beautiful trees there. And on the top window upstairs, there's a mezzanine. There's 2 bedrooms and a mezzanine room there. And it's where an owl perches there. You can hear him at night wooing. And yet you come down in the morning and there's lots of little, big, I've never seen owl droppings before, but they're quite big pieces of grey. But I didn't mind it because it was an owl. It's funny what we do tolerate, isn't it? But the house at the time as well, it wasn't only inhabited by cows and horses, but the mice in the field. Because in France again, anyway, I think there's mice around here actually in Bigna, but the mice used to love going in. Many times we used to go to the house and they used to, love eating the furniture. So bits of furniture were chewed, but they were only tiny little things. So it just felt so awful trying to get rid of them. But it was at one stage we were nearly taken over by the mice, and we could hear them running when we were in bed, hear them running across the attic at night. So it was a bit eerie because the house is, it's on a little, what's called like a hamlet, we would call it. And it's about literally a 7-minute walk down into the village of Soujal. Now in the village, there is a bar, owned by a Parisian. It's funny, the previous owner was a Parisian as well. And there's a shop attached to it. Again, as is in everywhere in France, there was a boulangerie, which is lovely, lovely fresh bread. And there was a church and the Marie. So they're about a 7-minute walk down. So it's quite a nice walk. And there's a little sort of bird sanctuary not far away. There's also in the garden where we were staying, doing up the house, there's a pear trees, cherry trees, and sloes. So of course, in the summer, I used to make cherry jam, make gin in the autumn, sloe gin. You know, it's like over here, really. So much out there that you can access, but it seems more readily available somehow and more around when you're walking around in France. Lovely walks around there as well. Can I just see the next photograph, David, please? Yeah, okay, and that's looking up the garden now. You can see it's fairly flat now, but it was, and it goes right beyond. It was really undulated when we had the house and all really overgrown on the tallow, the hedging on the side. But that's what it's like. It's really, as I say, it's beautiful. It's in a little hamlet, a 5-minute walk to the town of Sujal, and then literally half-hour or 5-minute drive to the town of Pontorson as well. But what's the main thing as well about bought a barn in France, in Brittany, it was the lifestyle of the French. This is one thing that was really attracting me going as well. In France, they have what's called goose fairs. They have it every year. They have the farm, you see all the geese running around all day. They're all very free range, and the chickens, which you do tend to get a lot of that in France. But they have like a big goose fair where people used to take a plate. They have all the geese then were cooked for people to eat, and lots of different food was served. So they used to make it an event where people took your own plate and knife and fork, then you just paid for the food. This still is ongoing. It's still an event in France as well. And then they have what's called brocantes, which are like car boots. That was attached to the goose fair. And that's a fantastic event every year, because they have musicians as well. Now, up until a couple of years ago, I used to go, and it's again like going back about 50 years, where they used to lay like a wooden platform down for you to dance. They used to play the old squeeze boxes, the accordions, and it was beautiful to watch. It wasn't just the young kids hanging around, but it was like all the older couples used to dance, and we used to leave, and the older couples were still dancing there till 2 o'clock in the morning. And this happens every year. And again, within France, you get lots of car boots, which are brocantes. I think that's the name for them, in all the villages in the towns. And they run from, like, we have car boots from 8 till 1. Theirs go on all day. You have musicians playing, and you can buy all sorts of different food as well. So that is another aspect of the lifestyle that I did like by living in that particular area as well. It wasn't just buying the house in France, it was the lifestyle. They have markets as well, as we do over here. But again, up until 18 months ago, the French were really into their own produce. They tend to support their own country a lot more by buying their own meats, their own bread, and vegetables. A lot of them are grown, and people sell their own. I mean, the color of some of the potatoes and carrots, because people had just dug them up and taken them along to the markets and to the brigante. So it was lovely. It's a really lovely lifestyle being over there. And again, with regards to Brittany, with it being on the border where I am, what attracted us as well was because you could get to some beautiful parts of Brittany, Paris, go down. But as I said, Normandy as well is a lovely country, because you can get the Calvados from there as well. And also there was it's access to the World War sites. You got the British World War sites. There's a couple, Saint-James or St. James, not far, about 10 minutes from where my village is. And then what was interesting, this one on the way on to Mont Saint-Michel, this one, a German one, which was really different from the British and the Americans. There's also a big American, obviously, World War sites over there. But the German one was interesting because all the gravestones were in like a grey or a black marble. All fantastically kept as well. I don't know, we noticed not so many people used to visit these, but it was there. It was just amazing. You know, the history in that particular area was really amazing. It was fantastic. But again, within the village life in France, there's a big lake by there as well. But we noticed, because of Madame Bigot, vans used to come round selling their produce. She used to have a van round one day selling general food, tins and packets. Then another one came selling meat, and then the boulangerie. And I thought that was fantastic how they went out. Now, this was up until about 15, 18 months ago. So I'm sure, I don't know whether things might have changed in France again since all this performance with COVID, but you know, I'm hoping that they still managed to keep the lifestyle as what they had, what I know, what kept me wanting to go to France. Within the village again, there was a Anglo-sized group where the French and the English, and there's a lot of Dutch people live over there as well, got together and wanted to learn. And in France, you can learn French free. They'd like to know the language, obviously. And they used to have classes for the British and the Dutch or whoever else is over there to go to free French classes. And to the extent that the French people wanted to learn English because, you know, there was so many English over there. So that was quite lovely about it. You know, I know we have all this about France, and I don't know, it seems to have a bad reputation with the Brits. But as far as I've had with France, they've always been open to the Brits going over there because we spend our money over there, and I'm sure they want us over there because there's a lot of Brits who've bought properties and they spend a lot of money on doing them up. So obviously they're going to encourage them to do it. Now, I noticed now in the past, because my friend, her house next door, she just sold hers just before COVID in March, and she had mainly Parisians coming out to look at the house. And I know I had at one time thinking of whether I should sell mine or not, and there were Parisians who were interested. So whether that's like over here, the English did want to come to Wales. I don't know now since this business with Mark Drakeford stopping them coming in. But it's like in France, I think the Parisians want to get away, don't they? Because it's very, you know, it's in the country, it's away from lots of things that, you know, that people want to get away from. Anyway, so, and that's the reason why I bought the house in France, in that particular area of France. And lots of times I thought, should I sell it and move south? But because of the accessibility and because you could use it as a base to go off to other parts of France. And as I say, it was cost next to nothing. And even now, the properties are still not very expensive. In the UK, that house would cost a lot of money, but it's not going to cost very much to a British person to buy a house like that over there. So I'm hoping after this COVID thing, and we can all get back to some sort of normality and let the French enjoy being over here and the Brits and everybody else enjoy being over in France. And then is that the last photograph, David?
It is,
yes.
Yeah,
so that was why I put that one on as well. The one that is up now is because that's why I enjoy going to France and why I keep keeping it there. And the house I did try, because again, sometimes I've hardly been out to the house. Well, not this year. And then I thought, well, if anybody would like, I'd like to share it. So I did try to do it as like a holiday let also, you know, but I never really got round to it because for sort of 48 years of the year it was empty because I was working at the time. I didn't really have much time to go over to spend in France, but now of course I'm retired more or less. I'm hoping to try and spend a lot more time out there. And again, it's open if anybody's interested, because it is a beautiful spot. And people say, oh, I don't like, worried about driving in France. You don't have to worry about it, because it's a lot quieter. The busiest section is driving on their motorways from Caen to Pontisson, and that is still not a very busy road. It's nothing like our M4. It's possibly like the road from here to Carmarthen. The road is the busiest. That sort of volume of traffic at the maximum. And then, of course, there are all country roads, and if you like cycling, it's great for cycling. There's, as I say, there's a bird sanctuary close by. And what's interesting in France as well, on a Sunday morning, you hear the hunters, the chasseurs are out there as well, after the birds and rabbits, and they actually take them home to eat. So it's not as if they're just killing them for the sake of it. You see them with their catch, and they take them home, and they do, and actually they do try and sell it outside the Intermarché, like the B&Q equivalent. Now and again, they'll have stalls where people have actually gone and shot the rabbits or the pheasants, and they'll try, you know, sell it to people, which is for very cheap produce as well. So, yeah, so as I say, I don't know, lots of people may have enjoyed going over to France, but there's lots of really fantastic areas to go and see. And many times I thought, oh, shall I sell it? Shall I sell it? But and then when I go there, I never want to come back. You know, I just want to stay there because it's just so calm. It's like everywhere else. If you had a house stuck in the middle of Ceredigion, you'd probably feel the same. But what I love about it is they do still maintain their culture, their values of families and food and wine and cheese and drink. So they do really value things like that and take it quite serious. So anyway, I'm just trying to think now if there's anything that's gone on for a while. I could tell you lots of little stories, like when Madame Bigot, it was their anniversaire, their 50th wedding anniversary, which was fantastic. Her husband, actually, he was a prisoner of war. He got caught the first month of the Second World War, and he was a prisoner of war for the 5 years, 39, 45, for the 5 years. And of course, he lost his sight. He didn't see very much. But when they had their wedding anniversary, their 60th or 50th wedding anniversary, all the village was involved. We all had to walk to the village. We all went to the Marie, and they all went through the marriage vows again and talking about where they worked. She's never left the village, and he hadn't. She worked in the shop, and he worked on the farm. So, but you do get that in France as well. You know, this sort of interbreeding in the area where people don't really go. And Madame Bigot just used to speak patois French, which is a very old form of French. So it was bad enough. But we did communicate. She did enjoy a glass of wine as well. She quite enjoyed a wine. So anyway, so I hope that's okay and gives you an idea of what attracted me to buying the property in France. Again, if I dig out more photographs, if I can find them to show you before and after, but it just gives you an idea what, you know, the process of buying in France. It's a bit long-winded, but I suppose it's changed over here now. It's a lot more involved, but it was, and it's really worth going to visit. It is a lovely country as everywhere else is, but they still maintain their culture.
Thank you, Laurane. That was a most interesting talk.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing. And
has anybody got any questions they want to ask, or if they're interested in anything?
Everybody would like to unmute themselves and fire away with some questions, please.
May I ask a question?
Go on, Iris.
Thank you. I used to live in Hertfordshire and had a friend there. They bought a place in France as well. Now, Hertfordshire isn't it's quite easy to get to France from Hertfordshire, and they used to go very often. But there was a reason why they went. You glossed over the rebuilding of your house a little bit. You said you found some English people to do the work.
Yes, because only because we the people who were there, and they were looking for work as well, and I found it hard to find some French people who could come along to do it, and these English people were living there, and that was their job. They were looking for work.
My friends had an awful lot of problems with the rebuilding because they had to use local labor. And I understood, I'm probably wrong about this, but I understood they had to use local labor.
Yeah, they were local people. They were locals who lived there. They still live there in France. Yeah, they do. They both live and contribute to the system in France. And we didn't take them over. They were people who were living there. And of course, who just buying it and not knowing anyone or knowing anything. We just knew of these Brits who lived up the road. We did try to involve, we did try and get involved with the French builders as much as possible. We had the fosse septique put in by the French people. You have to have your chimney checked every year, your fosse septique checked every year by the French. And of course, you have to pay your tax. There's high taxes in France as well that I have to still contribute to as well. I pay my taxes in France. But it's still nowhere near as high as over here. But we do have lots of taxes to pay over in France.
Thank you.
Yeah, I glossed over the house, as you said, Iris, because I didn't want so much emphasis. I was mainly wanted to know why I bought a house in France, a barn in France, because it was for the French lifestyle rather than doing up a house.
I wasn't being rude about it.
No, I know that. But no, because I could have gone on about we had this done and that done. Yeah. But I thought that might have bored you. It was just really because it's a lifestyle in France that I really wanted to go for, rather than, doing up houses, which is just the base, isn't it? A house, it's just everything else around a house that's important.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
May I say, Laurane, I wouldn't have missed this talk for anything, because it brought back so many memories of me. We caravanned going to France almost. Can you hear me?
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. We caravanned started camping in 1950s, and we went to France almost every year. Actually, he'd organised everything to go in the August, but he died in the July, which is 25 years ago. But we were going almost every year for about a month to 5 weeks. And I think we must have done every corner.
Oh,
we
excellent.
went as far, the furthest we went was down to the Basque country. And that was an experience in itself. And that was an experience in itself. But yes, it's a wonderful country. Particularly, I remember what the Dordogne and Rocamadour. And so many, and yes, Saint Michel and all those, I remember those. And I've got videos of them. I took a video from the time we got on the ship to the time we came home. I've got all those. Wonderful,
the ferry's part of the holiday, wasn't it? Getting on the ferry is part of the holiday.
Yes. And with the caravan, with the organised trips, you saw what they wanted to, but we could go down all the little lanes, into the little villages, meet the village people, see how they lived. And yes,
talking about that now,
we love.
Talking about that, Margaret, if anybody wants to go to France, because with Brittany ferries, as I said, the ferry is part of the holiday.
Right.
But because I'm a property owner and I can get reduction for the ferries, and also if anybody wants to go to France on the Brittany ferries, I can give you a number where you get 15% discount off the ferry. You've just reminded me, if anybody's interested, I can give you my guest number, and you get 15%, because it can be expensive on the Portsmouth Brittany ferries. A lot of people they drive from Wales to Dover and then back again, because we're more or less parallel. But then I suppose they say, well, it's cheaper because you get the ferry in Dover, but by the time you paid petrol or might overnight. But then again, that you see parts of France again, isn't it? I think, well, they've seen Normandy and Brittany, they're working their way along the coast. So that's another way you can do it, I suppose. It's part of your holiday if you don't want to just jump on the ferry to France, because it can be a bit expensive. But if ever anyone's interested, I have that. But also going to, again, from Wales to Dover and back again, you see lots of France as part of the holiday again.
But that's why we were going for a month or 5 weeks, you know, because we were doing about 300 miles a day once we got over there. But he never minded driving.
Amazing, amazing.
But we had a cut price travel on the ship because well, at that time you could buy shares in it, so we had then we'd have a discount then on the crossing.
Well, that was good.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Well, hopefully after this COVID business, hopefully we can get back to some normality again of going to other countries, you know. We don't know what's going to happen. Don't know.
We fancied a property, something like yours, in Dordogne.
Yeah.
But we decided against it because my husband said, as much as we can do to look after the one we've got in Wales without having something out here.
I know,
so we decided against it.
I know. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes, it is wonderful. And it is very well presented. Thank you.
Oh, good. I hope you enjoyed it. And it's just to give you a flavour of why I bought a house in France.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's very good.
Thank you, Laurane.
Thank you.
it's
Well, if there's no more, and we've done the round of applause, then thank you so much, Laurane. There was nothing to worry about. I didn't realise until the last slide that I hadn't actually presented the presentation. It was still in work mode and not in play mode. So my apologies for the slides being slightly smaller.
No, you did fine. So does anybody want to see any photographs again of the map or anywhere? No, Mont Saint Michel or whatever. I'm sorry I didn't have more photographs. So
No, it's
good.
very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laurane.
Thank you, David, for
Sounds
organising it.
like a little bit of heaven.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to January when we have Dr. Sandra Ivinson speaking to us about something that I can't remember, but I'm sure will be equally interesting. Sorry, I can't remember the title.
The depiction of women in the 19th century English novel.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I wish you all a very happy Christmas. If
Thank
I don't
you.
get the chance to speak to you before, and if you're going away, travel safely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye now. Bye. Right. So that was okay, David.
It was absolutely fine, Laurane. No problem at all. You were superb.
Oh, good. Thank you. I could have gone on a bit more, but I thought, they probably had enough of listening to me. So anyway, that was good. As long as they enjoyed it, that's.
I think 40 minutes for a talk is plenty long enough.
Yes, I think so. And then you recorded it, so.
And I've recorded it, yeah.
Okay then. Fine. Thank you, David. Anyway, for your help.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye now. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You have to press leave meeting.
Oh, right. Well, I've lost it.
You have to press it twice.
Have I gone? No.
No,
No.
don't worry.
Can't see leave meeting.
All right, I'll do